Morning, guys. We're on Hebrews chapter 3, reading from verse 16 to verse 19. For who provoked him when they had heard? Indeed, did not all those who came out of Egypt, led by Moses? And with whom was he angry for 40 years? Was it not with those who sinned, whose bodies fell in the wilderness? And so the Israelites had sinned, and the result of sin, the wage of sin, was death. Only Joshua and Caleb enter the promised land in the end. So the road is narrow that leads to the promised land. And so we need to examine and look at why they didn't enter. As we go down, there's two Greek words that get used here, but he goes on in verse 18, and to whom did he swear that they would not enter his rest, but to those who were disobedient? In the King James it says unbelief, but in the ESV it also uses the different Greek word for disobedient, which is slightly different to unbelief, but yet they are linked. You know, if we everything done without faith is unbelief, and so if we in Romans, I was looking at Romans last night, it says, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. And so when we suppress the truth and we land up in unrighteousness or disobedience, we end up not believing. We end up searing our conscience and our mind. And if you follow Romans 1's progression, you see folk who eventually know nothing of the truth. In fact, the obvious thing where we have today a society of genders and marriages and a man and a woman, it's all got mixed up, and people don't even know the truth, and so they disobey God almost by and it starts with this disobedience leading to a lack of knowledge and a lack of truth, but the two go hand in hand. This is a quote from Psalm 95, and Psalm 95 puts it like this: for 40 years I loathed that generation, has said, they are a people who go astray in their heart and have not known my ways. And so in their heart they start to deny God, and they start to choose the flesh, and as they start to become more and more disobedient, their consciences also become more and more seared, and so they drift away from the Lord. And that's what's happened here, and eventually they land up in unbelief. So they grumble in the desert, are we ever going to get there? Has God brought us out here to die? And many different statements showing that they actually don't believe God's plan of salvation to bring them all the way through to the end, even though God has proven through water, through the rock and the manna and provision and all that. They're starting to lack that they even trust God. And that's the problem, is if we allow sin into our lives and that disobedience, then it lands up in unbelief, and when we're in unbelief we don't enter. So it's only by faith that we enter, and so the two go hand in hand. So it's quite interesting to just do a search on those two, verse 18 disobedient and verse 19 unbelief, the two reasons that the Israelites never entered the promised land. Trust you have a wonderful day. God bless.